Capital Connection, the 2022 Outlook for Capital, Valuations and Deal Flow. And to lead the session and to moderate the session, I'd love to invite Mr. Rajat Wahi, partner Deloitte India. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please welcome Mr. Rajat Wahi on stage? Let's hear it loud together as we welcome him. It should be loud. There should be some energy at least, yeah? Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Wahi. I now would like to welcome our panelists on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Karan Markan, MD and founder, Quantum Oakman Partners. Let's hear it loud together as we welcome him. I would love to welcome Mr. Ashutosh Bihani, CEO, Thalapakatti Hotels Private Limited. Let's hear it loud together for him. I'd love to invite Mr. Sagar Daryani, co-founder and CEO, Wow Momo. Please welcome him on stage. And Mr. Sharat Sachdeva, Head Commercial, Non-Aero Noida International Airport, a Zurich Airport Group company. Please welcome him on stage. Let's hear it loud together. And as Mr. Wahi is here to moderate the session, I'd please request you to complete the session in 30 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And thank you for being here. Good to be here in a live event. I was telling Ritu, it's been like, what, year and a half since we've all met physically. I think it got too used to meeting virtually, I guess. But thanks. Good to have all of you here. Again, interesting session, just talking about investments, VCs, lots of excitement in the overall economy. If you just see the number of unicorns we are making, what is it, like 71 now in the last 1 year? And so it's clearly a great time to build brands, build businesses, especially consumer-facing businesses. We are seeing that across all the industries that we work with. So I'm with Deloitte. And before we start, I think it'll be good if all of you can just do a quick 30-second intro. I think you'll do more better justice to it than I'll do introducing you guys. So starting with you, Ashutosh.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. To introduce myself, first I think I'll introduce the brand. It's not very well-known brand in North India. It's called Dindigul Thalapakatti. I'm the CEO of the business. It's a 400 crore plus revenue business with the focus on biryani. We are unclaimed largest biryani brand of the country, but yeah, we are unknown as of now. We are backed by one of the finest investor in this industry, which is CX Partners. Before this, I've been part of investment and the private equity for 6.5 years, and been on the board of Barbecue Nation, Sapphire Foods, and have evaluated 40 plus brands in this industry. So I think I carry that experience, but it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Basically, I am Sagar Daryani. I am the founder and CEO of this brand called Wow Momo. And we have another brand called Wow China. We've been into this business for 13 years. And yeah, I mean, the journey has been nothing less than a Bollywood blockbuster, so it's been really, really exciting. And yeah, currently we operate 383 outlets of Wow Momo across 18 cities. We just entered our 18th city yesterday in Trivandrum, which is in Kerala. And for Wow China, we operate under the 63 stores. We are coming up with a third brand very, very soon. So yeah, quite kicked, quite excited. And yeah, I mean, ready to wow you guys. You have to obviously taste us to know us better. So all of you who have tasted us, very, very happy because you people make us what we are. And those of you who haven't, the nearest store is in Aerocity itself at Worldmark, so do go there.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Karan Markan from Quantum Oakman Partners. Thank you, Restaurant India team, for calling us here. It's a really nice event, and the things are really picking up as far as the F&B scenario is concerned in the Indian markets. Post-pandemic, it has been a completely different scenario, new kind of formats coming into the food businesses, and we as a VC firm are quite bullish on that. Our LPs want to be into the Indian markets. They want to just capture the Indian landscape. They are looking out for brands, and the idea is basically to drill down the smaller cities, the unknown cities as small as Tumkuru in Karnataka or Rohtak in Haryana. These are still the virgin markets, and their are still a shortage of brands as far as the restaurants or food is concerned. So we are looking out for founders who are visionary enough that they can take their brands to those cities, looking out for next great 5 years in the F&B sector in India.
Thanks. I think Ashutosh, I'll come to you first because you work both in the. I saw you worked in Deloitte as well, so that's interesting. And but you obviously worked, huh?
EY as well.
EY as well. Okay, so I think most people who work in one of the big four end up working in two. I did KPMG as well. So I think just coming to you, just looking at the whole, growth funding, because you said you have an investment from CX, right? So just in terms of looking at how angel investors, PE funds, VCs, how are they evaluating food service industry today, and what do they typically look for? Because many of the people sitting here would be entrepreneurs or running their businesses. Is it after 5 restaurants? Is it a certain number you need to hit on a monthly sales rate or an overall sales rate? What are some of the ways in which businesses are evaluated?
Sure. I think before going for what investor looks for, I think I'll take 1 minute to explain at least how I have seen this industry in the last 7 years when the most of the development has happened from the investment side. So till 2013, frankly, there were 1 or 2 investments which were made largely in the VC side, where I think SAF Partners, some of the people invested. Since 2013 to 2015 was a period when few large investments happened, where Barbing Nation came in, Sapphire Foods came in, some of the other businesses came in, right? And then 2016 to 19, based on those sizable businesses, a lot of small businesses got funded. But unfortunately, what happened was a lot of failure stories happened in between in this industry, and which is, as all of us know, that it's the mortality rate is very high in this industry for various reasons, which I'll talk about. The investor confidence, according to me, was lost for the industry. And then everyone was interested on account of the payback what this industry offers. You can get paybacks ranging from 2 years to 4 years of payback, which is, I think, a 25% IRR, which I think people die for, right? So I think this is an industry which has been in focus, but off late, before COVID, people were conservative. But since COVID, I think the situation has completely changed. To give numbers, in December or October 2020, the market cap of F&B brand in India was 30,000 crores. Now it stands at 90,000 crores with 5 new brands, be it Barbing Nation, Sapphire, Burger King. A lot of brands have come in, right? So I think people are interested. Investors are definitely interested. It's an area of interest. What they do look for, I think typical an investor, what he looks for remains there, which is obviously the product and offering. Number 2 is the team, most important. Number 3 is the market and the size. These are, I think, basics what people look for before investing. As far as the F&B is concerned, at least our learnings of 7 to 8 years with being with value brands and everything, I think there are 4 or 5 things which I would, at least I believe in before I invest or before I look for a brand. Number 1 is according to me, premium in this country is yet far away. Only value works. The 5 largest brands of this country, everyone sells their product at less than 300 rupees ABV, right? So premium, according to me, is far away. We need to focus on economy products. Number 2 is multi-brand doesn't work. According to me, you need to have one brand focus, scale it, and take it to next level, because all the failure stories, without naming, one of the biggest reason, according to me, has been diverting their attention to multiple brands and finally realizing it and then reducing it. So that's the second angle to it. I think Rajiv was discussing about growth versus profitability. According to me, you need to be profitable at unit level, and then only you will become profitable at scale. But there are a bunch of investors who are okay to wait for profitability, but at least the kind of investor and the horizon I've seen, profitability at unit level is most important. So when you create your product, you need to be sure whether at this unit, which is a restaurant or a central kitchen, whether I'll become a profitable. And then at scale, obviously, the profit, after taking into account the corporate expenses, I'll become profitable or not, right? So I think these are some of the areas, according to me, what investor would want to look at. And that's what has played out in some of the recent stories, like without naming one of the brand which was available at 400 crores 1 year ago is now being valued at more than 5,000 crore listed company, right? So what has led to it is clear focus about the product and the proposition what you're offering to customer. It will definitely pay out rather than diversifying too much beyond your control.
Sure,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank
Great points and good learnings, I hope, for everybody. I'm making notes. Sagar, coming to you, you had an investment in your business. You have investors. Who are the main investors besides your personal sort of, what are the companies?
So we've been very widely backed by Lighthouse Funds, by Tiger Global, and I think we were one of the very few food deals that Tiger Global did in India.
Okay.
And lately backed by Treeline, which is largely a public market fund invested into Jubilant and was early invested in Westlife.
Okay.
So I think I personally feel that, so basically, see, in our country, our population is the biggest strength. We are largely a consumer-centric market, and food is something that thrives consumerism, right? And it goes by the word of mouth. So today, if you are an entrepreneur here and you're in the food business, it's a very, very exciting time for you because, when I began Wow Momo, there was nothing known as startup. It was more about entrepreneurship, and F&B startups in the food space were very rare, right? And today, if you are in that space and if you are a homegrown brand, you have a huge advantage because if you can create something which is scalable, right? If it's scalable, this industry is the people's business, right? It's by the people for the people. If it is scalable, India is so huge, it's so massive that I would say every city is like a country in a country. Delhi is a country in a country. Forget state, Jubilant, Domino's today, they are in 300 plus cities. For us, we are in only 18 cities, right? So we have a long, long way to go. So imagine the depth and the scale of the market and the potential of the market. So I think for investors, they definitely look at scale. Also, I think what has happened lately is that technology has become a very big factor in F&B play. Now, by technology, I just don't mean e-commerce, because selling online is not food tech for me. For me, food tech would be how do you, adapt technology in your business to scale it up. In our case, we took up the Momo shelf life from 2 days. We still have a 2-day shelf life in QSR, but we came up with FMCG Momo with a 9-month shelf life. So we went multi-channel, where from being a restaurant, now and then being a category in QSR, now we're looking at making Momo an industry, right? Our Momo sauce is very famous. We're launching that very soon. So I think it's more about going multi-channel. Earlier we would talk about omni-channel, online, offline. Now it's more about multi-channel. How do you make technology an enabler? Today we're talking about a Momo vending machine coming very soon, right? So how do you do that disruption? Apart from that, we would talk about selling online today. What has given rise to businesses in the F&B space is actually phygital retail. And going phygital is not really a format. It's actually a strategy, right? It's a hybrid model. You have to be online, offline, both. And I think COVID has really brought in that disruption in the sense that, prior to COVID, we would do 1.5 lakh online orders. Post-COVID, we are now doing 7 lakh online orders a month. So imagine the way businesses have pivoted, businesses have changed, and investors are seeing more room of growth here, right? Because once you go online, you are more scalable, you are more available. How are you more hybrid? And what is leading this phygital growth is basically 3 factors. I'll be very quick here. Firstly, social media has now become social commerce. Instagrammable food, right? Today you can have a hashtag and you can sell on Instagram, you can sell on Facebook, you can sell wherever. You don't just need the aggregators. B, I think the focus has shifted from convenience to consumers to maybe experience. We just, heard Akshay talking about curbside pickup, multi-channel. So Now we are focusing more on self-ordering kiosks, curbside pickup, gamification, right? So how do you get the digital element in your store? So you have the right mix of online, offline. And this is, leading the growth of Grab to Go takeaway market also in a very big way. So the smaller QSR chain, the small pocket stores which can scale very fast, that Grab to Go has really something that the consumers are looking at. I think the last 4 or 5 investments that I've seen in the QSR space, the Grab to Go model has really driven those investments. And lastly, and very importantly, I think effortless has become the core. Today, you had to call up an order, now you can do it through an app, and now it's also become a voice search, right? So I think businesses that are being able to club these 3 elements together with the main product that they sell, the food, have that physical presence, have that digital presence, club it together. I think investors are now looking at more of that space and more of those scalable businesses.
Thanks, Sagar. Some great points, and obviously technology is becoming a big enabler as well. So I think in addition to scale, and scale like you mentioned, Ashutosh, but scale also through technology and online as well, right? Karan, coming to you, same question. What is it that you already mentioned today? That lots of virgin markets, lots of opportunity. What is it that you think, besides what's been mentioned, is driving what you would look at from entrepreneurs? And at which point would you go in? 5 restaurants, 10 restaurants, 5 crores a month of revenue. At which point does it become exciting for you?
So when we speak about what the current scenario is, if we see how the landscape will be after 5 years, the number of restaurants present today will literally double. That means for the number of brands present as well. So maybe after 5 years, you may see brands as big as the ones that are present today and that are not still started, that have not yet started. Companies are moving in a format, or there are entrepreneurs who want to do it into a multi-cuisine setup. We have been in an Indian market. It has been a market where people have been going through multi-cuisine from last 20 years. But now how this has been segmented, Italian restaurant is different, continental food is different. So there is a brand for it. How I see is it will be a culmination of both the scenarios where multi-cuisines get structured vertically in under different brands. And then we target the different, 523 constituencies, or 543, sorry. 3 restaurants or 3 presents in each of these constituencies takes the number to 1,600 locations. And if we are able to serve good food, I know people, I have been to these smaller cities where people don't have access to good pizzas. This may feel a little more surprising, but in smaller towns in Kolhapur, people don't have access to burgers or sandwiches at a pace or at a price that it should be for the people with that per capita income. Keeping the food quality intact, maybe lowering the procurement cost, we can definitely serve those kind of audiences, thus creating bigger valuation, bigger brands, and hence, in the end, delivering more quality and more value to the F&B ecosystem. Creating bigger brands is the idea for now.
Thanks, yeah, makes sense. And I think, like you said, a lot of brands which are there, and I think Ashutosh also mentioned, mortality rate tends to be high. It's a high capex model, especially if you're opening a physical store, from the equipment to the rent, etc. Just coming back to you, Ashutosh, if you look at the next stage of growth, is it more, even from your perspective, obviously we're going to look at collaborations, consolidations, there's a lot of that likely to happen. But when you look at next stage of growth, do you identify the market saying, we can open a central kitchen, and then do I expand in a big way? And does that make it more attractive for investors? And is that where you see the opportunity? And then just talk a bit about potential, consolidation also in the industry and where you see that going.
So I think it depends on the business to business. I'm a central kitchen business where I serve fresh food every day from my central kitchen to 10 to 15 restaurants which are in and around my central kitchen, which is serviced 3 times in a day, right? So I'm in a business which is quite heavy on logistic, and this is just to keep the product fresh. As I think I couldn't agree with Rajiv more than what he said, that Yes, customers are looking for fresh. We are not into a frozen business. Especially, I may be very cynical about it, but the fresh is something which customers are looking for. And that's why for me, scalability comes if a territory can offer me more than 5 to 7 restaurants in and around, because for us, every restaurant is more than 5 crore annual revenues, right? So for me, I need not get into a smaller formats. For me, it makes sense to have a larger formats and grow with the central kitchen. As far as the consolidation
Just quickly, what is the advantage of a central kitchen versus having a kitchen within that? Is
Yeah,
it just
I think good point.
are you able to substitute space versus cost of delivery?
Correct. Right. So I think it's a very interesting choice which people have made, where people have moved to serving either fresh food out of the restaurants, where chef is cooking food, compared to people who have taken a call of serving fresh food, but being made at a central kitchen. And the third call is not serving fresh food, making a shelf life based product, which may be suitable for some of the products and the offerings, and make it a centralized kitchen which service the entire country, right? So these are the 3 choices which people have made, right? And the reason why we have chosen the way we are, the reason is it's a 60-plus-year-old business. There is a recipe which we have kept secret for last 60 years to maintain that consistency being delivered from all the smallest town in Tamil Nadu to say US, to Singapore, to Malaysia, wherever we have restaurants. It's important that recipe is intact and the product is being made centrally so that the quality can be and the customer experience doesn't change. 85% of the product which I serve in my restaurant is made in central kitchen, is being served in almost finished from 3 times, right? So that's the biggest reason. And then I don't care about cost, because for me, the first and foremost is creating that experience and the product quality at the value pricing. If I can move to, say, restaurant-based delivery, I can definitely save 5% of margin today, right? But that's the choice which we have made, that we need to continue on what we are trying to do here. Moving to consolidation, according to me, consolidation for a brand doesn't make sense. Consolidation only makes sense for a platform. Customer is looking for a product and the product is being associated with the brand. If you want to create a scalable business, you can definitely buy a lot of brands which are available. And definitely after COVID, I think that speed and availability of the businesses ranging from 100 crores to even 400 crores, a lot of businesses are available, and especially in the south and west side of India. So consolidation, according to me, is an option, but only for players who are playing a platform game. But for a brand who's focused on product, my suggestion is just make that product scalable enough, backend should be strong enough that you can grow it, and then move to next brand or product to then create an independent team and grow it again.
Sure. Great points. Sagar, coming to you, central kitchen versus a sort of a diversified where each restaurant is independently working there. And just talk briefly about consolidation and M&A activity as well. And how do you see that? Does that work in the F&B space?
So yeah, I'm a very, very big fan of Central Kitchen. I think that's how we began our business. So, you have one kitchen. I'll tell you where that helps. Our industry is all about consistency. Today, you cannot say that Domino's gives you the best pizzas, but you can say that it gives you the most consistent pizzas, whether it's the product or the service, right? So I think consistency in taste, in quality, at the same time also consistency in your food cost. Because, if you have a central kitchen, it's more easier to maintain elements of cost and get economies of scale. So at the central kitchen, you are chef dependent, but when you have hundreds and thousands of stores, you're not chef dependent. So you manufacture at the kitchen, but when you go to the store, it's not about manufacturing, it's about processing. It's about how do you process the product and how do you innovate the product to give a better and a larger experience. So central kitchen definitely works. I think for QSR, I think we are completely central kitchen in every city. Where we go, we put up a kitchen and then we need to have 15, 20 small formats at least to go that route. Again, there are different, I wouldn't say different businesses, but different verticals. I mean, for FMCG, where we are looking at it as a product, we've decided to go frozen because we require larger shelf life. For the restaurant space, we want to stick to fresh. And personally, you know, I don't think they are different businesses. I mean, a lot of people initially told me they are different businesses, and trust me, you know, even I started looking at it as different businesses. And this is a learning. You know, when you start looking at a different business, you have clutter in your head. You think about cannibalization, etc., etc. But what I've realized now is that they are not different businesses. They're different occasions. So when someone comes to my store to dine in, you know, it's dining in is an occasion, delivery is an occasion, takeaway is an occasion, and you know, your favorite momo, which we made it the food of all times, with you all the time at home is an occasion. So, you know, there are different occasions. And once you remove that clutter, I mean, it's your product. It's ultimately Wow Momo which is there. If you will not do it, someone else will go out there and do it. So I think we tend to, as entrepreneurs, you know, we tend to get ourselves into this clutter. But I think keeping things simple and like how Ashutosh mentioned, you know, being focused on one product and building a brand around that is definitely the way to go. However, I was always a very strong, you know, always in favor of, you know, doing one single brand and focus. But COVID has changed that perception for me, to be honest. So we had a brand called Wow China, and I think the reason that we came out profitably from COVID was when we started clubbing Wow Momo and Wow China stores together. So wherever we had a Wow China, we could do a cloud kitchen of Wow Momo. Wherever we had a Wow Momo, we could do a cloud kitchen of Wow China. So the same chef that prepares Chinese, for him to steam momos or pan-fry momos was not a new addition and human resource. So, you know, you could cross-function operations. And personally, you know, for me, cloud kitchen was always a ghost kitchen, a dark kitchen, because I didn't know how do you make money from cloud kitchens. But today, if you have to make money from cloud kitchens, you need to get better throughput sales. And for that, you need multiple brands. So in India, there's a huge belly expansion that's happening. The advent of internet is doing it. You know, today, someone is in a two-tier or three-tier city aspires to, you know, have something that is available in a metro. And you know, we exactly know what's happening in the West. So there's this belly expansion that's happened in India, and I think COVID, because we all have been working from home, there's a new trend that's come up. You know, earlier you would order for the entire family. Now in the same family, you're seeing a lot of solo orders happening, right? That's where the number of orders have also gone up. And what you're doing is that you have a larger audience base to cater to. So when this belly expansion is happening, it's very important to figure out the cuisine gap and then, you know, create a brand around that cuisine gap, but it should complement with the core of your business. Yeah. So today, if we are doing a third brand, it's going to be from the house of Wow. It's going to have that Wow to it because Wow is that brand for us. You know, it's not going to be some other name because I think that's how we replicate. So a consumer who has a trust, who has a confidence in Wow Momo has been able to migrate to a Wow China. And honestly, I'm not cannibalizing because in whichever mall I go to or whichever neighborhood I go to, there is a Momo, Wow Momo operating and there is the Chinese player operating. So I'm competing with him or her. At the same time, you know, if I do my third format, which I'm not revealing right now, but it'll be there in news towards the end of the month, you know, it's going to be from the house of Wow. So I think, and then how do you complement that from the core of your business? So I think that's the kind of consolidation within brands is what I would want to look at, where you get better throughput sales, better synergies, better margins. And if you look at consolidation in the F&B industry, yes, 25% of the restaurants have got shut post-COVID, you know, on behalf of the NRI with this COVID impact report. So the industry was definitely hit hard. What we figured is that, you know, the guys who've shut have shut for good. But there are these players who are growing and they are being able to take the advantage of better real estate cost, expand, grow. So again, you know, funding, since the topic is on funding for those businesses is largely definitely there. And with the listing of the biggies that Ashutosh mentioned, you know, you saw some 5 or 6 listings in the last 6 months in the F&B space. I think this is the best period for this industry. So if you're an entrepreneur, these are exciting times because, you know, 5 years back or 7 years back, people would just discount you because you're in the food space and you can't scale and you can't grow. And in today's scenario, if you really have to grow and scale, QSR or casual dine is the way forward. And I think everyone has realized that.
Thanks. Lots of great points. Central kitchen versus cloud kitchen. I also wondered why cloud kitchens can be effective if there are no synergies, right? So it really has to be synergetic, even if you're looking at acquisition, so that you can leverage what you've already built, or at least leverage the chefs, the whole back-end stuff, right? So great ideas. And for both of you, the numbers are similar, 12, 15 restaurants per central kitchen in a way, right? Per kitchen and what?
It depends. I mean, in Delhi NCR, we have more than 60. In West Bengal, we have more than 100. So it depends how you expand your kitchen also with time.
Okay. And also the size of formats as well, small versus,
yeah. Like in our case, we operate from a 50 square feet kiosk in airports to a 3,000 square feet restaurant in a Wow China bistro. So from from a kiosk operator selling a buffet, it's that entire gamut. But actually, what really works is being in the same format. I mean, if you're QSR, you focus on QSR. If you're trying to do QSR and fine dine, I think they are
Completely.
like two different
chalk and
continents.
cheese, absolutely. Coming to you, Karan, where do you see the whole move in the industry today from a consolidation, investments point of view? Do you see a lot of, given that 25% restaurants are shut down, I'm sure many are very weak and have been badly impacted on their sales and their profitability front. Is there an opportunity, and is that something that you guys are looking at as well?
Yeah, obviously, like I've always seen, like I really appreciate Sagar came up with Wow Momos, because I've always felt there is a shortage of brands from India for India. Like we always look up to Burger Kings, we always look up to McDonald's, we always look up to Subways of the world, but we lack indigenous brands, and this is the reason. Like we are looking out the markets and for the brands to be specific, to serve the audiences by utilizing, like you said, 25% of the restaurants shut doors. The reason was they were not able to generate enough revenues. When we utilize the same kitchen and maybe use multiple, maybe serving roles or some Chinese cuisine out of the same kitchen and cafe being run in the front, that becomes an advantage for that store owner or for that brand, because that gives them the revenue backing and decreases the number of chances where the stores would shut down. So this is the kind of scenario where I feel that should be ideal whenever we look up to the on-ground reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think just, Sagar, I'll start with you this time. Just in terms of the next steps, he talked about brands, Indian brands for India. We've always had millions of restaurants in India, but somehow brands never got built up. We are finally seeing scale now, branding. And does that resonate with consumers across cities, or do we still need to have brands which are more city focused? And you see a lot of national brands coming out of the Indian scenario, just because of the complexity of that. And talk a bit about real estate side as well. How easy is it to get licenses and permissions, because you run all your own restaurants? Huge impact, right, on the sector as well. Is that getting any better? Just talk briefly on that. I'll come to you, Ashutosh, with that.
So yeah, I mean, compliance is, no matter how much we talk about ease of doing business, compliance is a very, very big question mark in this industry. I mean, to open one full-fledged restaurant, you need to have more than 15 to 16 plus licenses. The number of licenses you require to operate a restaurant is much, much more than what you need to own a pistol or a gun in India. So yeah, it is a tough business, but it's doable. Yes, on behalf of the NRAI, we are advocating for a single window licensing. We're getting there. The Niti Aayog is trying to do its best to make things easier. But yeah, I mean, with regards to a national play right from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, I think India is a country where if a Domino's has come from abroad to India, and Jubilant has run it so well, it's a role model company for me in the F&B space. I think look at the way they've created the business, right? Today it's a 60,000 crore market cap company. So they actually taught a roti-eating country to eat pizza, right? So trends do set in India. You have to be that trend setter. Personally, I feel, like I said, the whole belly expansion and this is a business of brands. Yes, you can't have 20 brands and 15 brands. You can have at the max 1, 2, or 3. But personally, aspiration levels are very high. And, when we open in a tier 2 city, like I remember when I opened my store 4 years ago in Bhubaneswar, there was close to a 1 kilometer queue for my store, because that city only had a Domino's and we were the first branded player to come into that city. And imagine people have the spending power, but they don't have brands. Like Karan was mentioning about Kolhapur not having pizzas or burgers, and I think now that there's a mall coming up in Kolhapur, where even we are opening, where Domino's is opening. So imagine, the kind of depth the country has. So business of brands is definitely going to thrive. And yeah, if a Domino's or a KFC or a Burger King can come from abroad to India, why can't a homegrown QSR chain go global? I mean, that's been my personal aspiration. And hopefully, you know, we are going to get there. I mean, hopefully you will see a Wow Momo in Times Square, New York in years to come. And you will see many more businesses coming out of India and going global. So yeah, it is you know, make in India, it is local going vocal and then global, and I think the Honorable Prime Minister has really promoted that very well. You will see that action into the making.
Thanks, Ashutosh.
I'll keep it short, but I think largely covered by Sagar. But views on real estate, there was a window which was available. If someone would have captured, he would have got very decent prices in the market. If someone had guts to do that at that time in last 18 months. Whether the real estate plays an important role will depend on the brand you are playing with. Whether you need a high footfall or you don't need a high footfall. A Barbecue Nation kind of brand doesn't need a high footfall. It's a destination brand. And that's why they are at the back of the lane and with 7% rent to revenue. Compared to other brands like KFC, Pizza Hut, which are the impulse brand. They need to be even in high footfall area, and that's why the rentals are high. As far as the compliance are concerned, it's difficult, but it's become, according to me, much smoother in last 7 years. You need to have someone focusing on this internally. It's not a pain point anymore. There are few markets and pockets which creates a pain, which I think there are ways to handle that. And that's what, where we stand on compliance. As far as the local brands are concerned, I think over last 1.5 and 2 years after investing into this brand, Talapakatti, I think there are multiple brands with a size of 150 to even 400 crores, especially in South India, who are unknown to us, right? And they are struggling with at least some of the problem statement, which some of them are solvable, some of them are not solvable. But trust me, I think India has not seen an Indian brand growing within India and going outside India. There's a very big opportunity. Wherever we opened our restaurants, even outside like US, our one restaurant does Indian 27 crore rupees per year, right? In Sri Lanka, we do 3x of what my Chennai restaurant does, right? So the demand of Indian food is just amazing in India and outside India. In India, you will be amazed to see the numbers in one of the small 70,000 population town in Tamil Nadu. We do 3 crores annually out of that, which is a target for some of the large brand who wants to achieve, right? At 3 crore, I make 25% profit. So in summary, I think, as Sagar said, we are amongst the best time of this industry. We are just scratching surface. If you go down deeper, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, people are looking for brand. You can create 1,000 crore brand out of one state, which is Tamil Nadu, right? Similarly, there are multiple states which are available for you. You need to just be focused. And as for the sake of repeating what I said, I think the opportunity for Indian food brand to grow within India and create a market share, I think in next 3 years, you will see a lot of those brands coming in and will create significant value for stakeholders, investors, and people as well.
Thanks. Last question to you. So Karan, just briefly talk about the whole franchising part. You know, is this you wanted to talk about that? Does that work here in India as in this category, or do you have to go with your own, like what Sagar and Ashutosh are doing?
We were having certain discussions backstage, like where Sagar was of the opinion, like company-owned, company-operated stores are more advantageous, like whereas we are able to moderate the quality. Again, franchising comes in different formats. So what I feel is, if we want to keep the setups asset light, FOCO could be one of the ways where we can add in the capital from the franchisee, utilize their local knowledge, local expertise, because whenever a store opens up, we need to do local marketing. We can save on that cost whenever we have a local guy out there. And to maintain the quality, we can do it a company-operated format. Since coming from a
Capex light,
VC background, I would say this to be a perfect model, whereas we can quickly, maybe in next 2 to 3 years, open 2,000 plus stores in cities where there is yet to, where there is a serious necessity of these kind of brands or these kind of multi-cuisine. different kinds of cuisines are picking up in the Indian markets, and thanks to Zomato and players like Swiggy, those have taken these restaurants online and have added to the revenues. So these will be the leading players. I would see, like, whenever we sit with these folks, they want to strategize. Like, I would like to share, like, how I was working with a project on Google Trust. Now Google has made an initiative where they are teaching rural women to use mobiles, to use devices, to use Android devices, and they are giving it free of cost. And they are creating those smaller groups where a single woman would further teach 20 or 30 women. So that's like how these bigger players want to penetrate the technology. Still a lot to travel, I would say. Still a really unexplored market. I would say 95% of brands in the next 10 years will take birth maybe in 2022.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Really good session. Lots of learnings for me. I was making notes as you guys spoke. So thanks for a good session. Ashutosh,
Thank you very much.
Sagar, and Karan. Thanks, guys. And thank you, everybody, for being such good listeners. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Franchise India and the team. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. So we can take one or two questions if you would like to. Anybody?
Sure.
Any
Just one or
question?
two quick questions. Just introduce yourself and ask the question.
Please raise your hand if you have a question.
Anybody? No? Any questions?
All right.
Yeah. One person right there.
Can I request someone to please pass on the mic there? Please raise your hand. We'll hand it over to you. Turn on. I'll give my mic.
Hi, my name is Wahaj. I have been operating and running a restaurant for the past year and a half. Can you guys hear me?
Can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
The mask, yeah. So my name is Wahaj. I have been operating and running a restaurant for the past 1.5 years. And as Mr. Karan just spoke about virgin markets, that's exactly where my restaurant is located at. So I did my studies in the US, and then I came back after graduation. And then where I was born at, it's a very virgin market where we don't have many of these big restaurants and all these chains. But the common trend in the market is that a lot of people who have been brought up there go outside to Delhi and study, do the university studies, and go and work outside. And during this lockdown period, they all came back, and then they were looking for certain products which they could all enjoy, like the way they enjoy in the cities. So we started we started with the pizzas, and then we developed a multi-cuisine because we wanted to give people sort of every kind of a cuisine experience back home. So my question would be, again, as you were asking them again and again, is that what do you think is the right time, especially if you are in a virgin market, to scale up? Or what is the right time to go and ask investors, or how much sales should you be having? What kind of numbers should you guys have in order to go and ask for scaling up?
So I think we discussed that quite a bit, but maybe Sagar, you want to just, I think the overall feedback was try and focus on one or two areas. Don't try and become everything to everybody, because generally it's not easy to scale up from that perspective.
Yeah, but what I have realized in these virgin markets is that there is not a lot of competition, right? So, and a lot of these people want to have best of every sort of a cuisine. So because there's a terminology in this restaurant business where I've seen all-rounder chefs kind of a thing happening. So a person who knows his Indian dishes would also know some Kashmiri Vazwan. A person who does momos a person who does cakes can also do pizzas. So this kind of a model I've seen working out in the market.
Again, I'll get the experts to answer.
So you know what? Focus is very important in this industry. I mean, today, if you pick up a category, you need to be the best in that category, right? You need to really wow your consumer. So when you talk about an all-rounder chef, he might be able to give you average or good of a few products or wow of a few products, but not everything. So you need to understand what is his best forte and focus on that. But to be very honest, if you really want to scale a business and raise funding. So that comes much later. But if you really want to scale a business, it has to be zero chef dependent. So you need to make the entire food business process oriented, where it's all about assembling and you can really scale. And if you're talking about a tier 3 or a smaller town where there is not many of the brands have not entered, and if you have a good product, you should definitely open in different pockets. You should really scale. But personally, I feel if you try and do it with anything and everything, it's going to be jack of all trades and master of none. So you should focus on one product and scale it up. Coming to funding, I think for funding, you first have to be funding ready. Funding is like an ammunition. When people put money into your business, they expect you to take it from one level to the other, right? And for being funding ready, you have to build the team. You have to have processes and systems, and that will only happen once you have scale and you have volumes, because you cannot make systems. I mean, the systems and the processes you'll have for a one store compared to 10, compared to 100 will be very different. You'll have to keep reinventing. So I think you have to completely be very honest to yourself as to when you or your company is funding ready, when you have transmitted your passion, your processes into your team. And then raise money. Otherwise, you'll raise a lot of money and then the money will just go down the drain and nothing will happen. And what it'll do is that, it'll again create that psycho fear in the investor that, food businesses generally tend to fail. So the mortality will only go up. So yeah, I mean, personally, look at a business that's scalable. You can go places with it rather than doing everything and anything. And yeah, tier 2, tier 3s, I see so many of businesses now starting in tier 2 and thriving in tier 3. So it's a good marketplace, no doubt about it. You need to just get the right product, need to identify the right cuisine. And if you're doing something which is not a cuisine gap, which anyone and everyone is doing, like a biryani or something, then you have to be different. How different are you to what is currently offering in the market, and how can you scale that up?
Yeah, some good points. And I think the main thing here is in small towns, it is a challenge because you don't have potential to open 10 or 15 restaurants. So you've got to make that choice of what do you do then, how do you scale up. I think we are really out of time, so we'll
Thank you.
I think these guys will hang around here hopefully a bit post this. So do catch them for a quick question afterwards. But thank you everybody for your time and really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you,
you,
Mr.
Mr.
Wahi, for such an amazing session. Mr. Wahi, we'd request you to please present the mementos to our panelists. Can we please get the mementos on stage? So we'd like to present it to Mr. Karan Markan, Mr. Ashutosh Bihani, and Mr. Sagar Daryani. I request Mr. Wahi to please do the honors. Please present the mementos. I'd love to thank our panelists. It was so informative and such an amazing session we had. We had so much to learn from each one of you. Thank you so very much once again. I'd also request Nusra to please join us on stage to present the memento to Mr. Wahi. And I'd request all 5 of you to please get together for a group picture. Thank you. Thank you so very much once again for your time and for the information that you shared. Thank you. Let's hear it loud together for our panelists and for Mr. Wahi, everyone.